Unfortunately, almost 80% of people that retire before age 65 say that they did it for reasons out of their control. 36% of people said that their health got bad. 32% of people say that they lost their job. And another 11% said that they had family members that had health issues that they had to help out with. But today's video is for the other 20%. The folks that would like to retire before 65, and specifically the folks that would like to retire way before 65. This video is for people that are around age 55 that are saying, hey, Azul, I'd like to retire early, but I want to make sure I'm doing the right things. I want to make sure that I've thought through things before I do retire. And so the question is, can you retire before 65? And the good answer is, for a lot of folks, the answer is yes. But there's 6 key factors that you need to think about, you need to be aware of. And those are when you plan on retiring, how much that you have saved for retirement, how much you plan on spending in retirement, what kind of risk in your portfolio are you willing to accept, what's your asset allocation, also looking at taxes, how do you do this tax efficiently, and then the 6th one is your health. How do you make sure specifically that you have health insurance? So we're going to really key in on 3 issues. What are going to be your sources of cash flow? What kind of risk are you willing to take in retirement? And then what are you going to do for health insurance? Okay, let's start with the sources of cash, right? If you're 55 years old, most of us have a lot of money in our 401 retirement money, in our 401ks, in our IRAs. Now, if all of your money is in a taxable account, none of what I'm about to share with you really matters because you have access to all your cash. But most of us like the tax advantages of a regular 401k, a regular IRA. And so the question is, at 55, how do you get some money out of those retirement accounts to fund you until Social Security kicks in, right? So I'm going to start off talking about the 401k. Then I'm going to go to the IRA, but be sure to stay to the end because there's some common gotchas that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars if you're not aware of them. Okay, for your 401k, there's something called the Rule of 55. And in the show notes, I'll put an excellent article that was done by Charles Schwab that talks about the Rule of 55. But essentially, this is for your 401k. It says that in the year that you turn 55 or after, if you quit a job, and this is not tax advice, you should talk to an accountant, you should definitely read the article, but in the calendar year that you turn 55 or later, if you quit your job, you can take money out of your 401k without that 10% penalty. Now, if you leave at 53, and let's say you've worked at a place for 25 years and you leave and you're 53 years old, unfortunately, that's not going to work. But for the job that you leave when you're 55 or 56 or 57, that 401k, you can start taking money out of and not have to pay the 10% early withdrawal penalty. And so you still have to pay ordinary income tax. If that's, as you would even after 59 and a half, you still have to pay ordinary income tax on that. But you don't have to pay the 10% early penalty. Now, if you're what's called a public safety employee, instead of the rule starting at age 55, it starts at age 50. And public safety employees are positions like a police officer, a police person, a fire person, a firefighter, an EMT, and air traffic control people. Now, here's a big gotcha. If you take that 401k and roll it into your IRA, the rule of 55 doesn't work with your IRA. It works with the 401k that you left when you're age 55 or over 55. So it's got to be the 401k for that company. Now, here's how to save some money. If your current employer allows you to roll over past 401ks into your current employer's 401k, you can do that. So you can roll it in so that your current employer's 401k is higher. Or in the example I said earlier, you work 20 years for one company, you leave and you go work for a new company. Let's say you left when you were 53 and you had this big 401k. Well, hopefully the new employer allows you to roll the old 401k into the new 401k. So these can get complicated. This is not tax advice. I'm not an accountant. This is not tax advice for you. This is not financial advice. This is really putting things on your radar screen for you to research. Here's somebody way below 55, car racing behind me. Sorry for the noise. But for you to research on your own and or to hire a professional to help you with it. Okay, let's take a break from all this technical stuff and talk about health insurance. You know, if you retire at 55, you've got a lot of years. You've got 10 years for most of us until Medicare is going to kick in if you live in the United States and you qualify for Medicare. That's a long period of time. And so for most of us, you know, COBRA will cover you for part of that. For most people, that's an 18-month extension. You're going to have to pay the whole cost of that yourself, but at least you have availability of health insurance. So what do you do after that first 18 months? For a lot of people, they're going to look at the ACA exchanges, the Affordable Care Act exchanges, and whether or not you qualify for subsidies is going to be based on your taxable income, which is why it's important that you look at your sources of income. If all of your sources of cash flow, I should say, are in a account like a 401k or an IRA, regular 401ks, regular IRAs, the problem with that is every dollar you take out is going to be taxable income. So if you would have otherwise qualified for a subsidy, you can kick yourself out of that, right? So it's important to have other buckets outside of what are called tax deferred accounts. So a Roth I call tax me now, but don't tax me later account. You don't get the tax break day one, but then when you take the money out, as long as you meet the withdrawal requirements, it's non-taxable on the way out. And you can use the rule of 55 on a Roth 401k at your current employer. So the nice thing about that is that those are non-taxable dollars coming out because it's a Roth 401k. So that's something that can save you a lot of money and maybe save the subsidy that you otherwise would have qualified for. So understanding what's going to be taxed as ordinary income and what's not is really important when it comes to looking at your health care. Okay, let's keep going. What do you do with your IRAs? Well, there's something called the Rule 72T as in Tom, or substantially equal periodic payments, SEPP. Now, this gets very technical very quickly. I encourage you to work with an accountant, but I want you to know that there is a strategy to avoid that 10% early withdrawal payment. But you have to adhere to this plan until the later of you turn 59 and a half or 5 years. Again, I urge you, this is a way to avoid the 10% penalty on IRAs, but I urge you to work with a professional on this, an accountant. A lot of people mess this up, and then you end up paying that 10% penalty and interest, possibly penalties on that. And I don't want that to happen to you. Okay, I should have mentioned with the 401ks, the rule of 55. Typically, that also works with a 403A and a 403B account. So if you have one of those, you know who you are. Most of us are going to have the 401ks. Okay, let's keep going. What about if you work for a municipality and you have what's called a 457 account, which are basically like 401ks, but for people that work for municipalities. You know, the good news there is no 10% early withdrawal penalty. So you don't have to worry about all of these. Again, not tax advice. Talk to your plan administrator, talk to an accountant, make sure what I'm saying here is correct. But to my knowledge, there is no 10% early withdrawal penalty, so that should be helpful. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the rollover from 401k to 401k. If you've been with one employer for a long period of time, let's say, and you left that job when you're 53, roll it over into your new employer's job, 401k. And then when you turn 55, you've got a larger 401k to withdraw from, because it only works for the 401k from the employer that you left at age 55 or above. So that's something that can save you tens of thousands of dollars. The 72T, which is something you can use for your IRAs, I'm going to save you thousands of dollars by telling you to work with an expert. It's so easy to accidentally run afoul of the rules with that. And then the 3-bucket strategy that I talked about earlier, really looking at how do you pull money out of your accounts while controlling your ordinary income. That's really important as well, and that's going to impact what kind of subsidy you may or may not qualify for the Affordable Care Act exchange subsidies for your health insurance. So that's another key one. And then, just because you can take early withdrawals without that 10% penalty doesn't mean that you should, right? So really think about if that makes sense for you. You want to make sure that you have plenty of money to fund this long retirement. And also, I encourage you to look at this video up here that talks about the average retiree income for Americans in retirement, and this video down here that talks about 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can.